Cool. Earlier on, you saw that if I, within customer, so this is the customer database, if I do backslash and then D, you can see that we have no relations. And if I do backslash DN, here I've got one schema here called public, and the owner is Amigos Code. Now, a schema really is just a way of us organizing data inside of a database. And currently, when I say backslash D did not find any relations, that's within the public schema. Now, we don't have a way for us to create the tables that we need in order for our application to work. So we could go manually and say create and then database, or create and then table. Oops, can't type today. And customer, and then give the ID and whatnot, yada yada. So this is one way of doing it, but this becomes really difficult to scale. And as you build software with other peers, you need a better tool to manage your entire database relations and make sure that you have the desired state when you work within peers. And this is when Flyway comes into play. So right here, I'm within the official documentation for Flyway, which you can find the link in the description of this video, or you can just search for Flyway and then you'll land on this page by Redgate. Now, Flyway increases readability of deployments by versioning your database. If I jump straight to documentation, and in here you can see that it says Flyway is an industry-leading database versioning framework that aims to unlock DevOps for database. It strongly favors simplicity and convention over configuration in here. So you've got a few versions. So you've got the community, team edition, and enterprise. We're going to use the community as it's free and open source, but this tier is for database developers who need to version and automate their database deployments. So we actually need to version our database. And when I mean version, I mean, so in here, if we go to Flyway, CLI and API, and you've got concepts in here, but what I'm interested here is getting started and then how Flyway works. So in here, so the easiest scenario is when you point Flyway to an empty database. So the idea is that you have something called the schema history table, and this basically contains the history of all the database migration versions which are applied to your database. So here, if you start with an empty database, then maybe you have one migration, which is to create the initial table. So in our case, customer. Then you have a second migration, which is to create maybe a second table called cars, for example. So a customer might have multiple cars. So then you want to have a relationship between customer and cars. Now, the cool thing is that these migrations or these versions right here, you can apply them later down the line as your database schema evolves. And you can see that the Flyway schema version history contains information of the scripts which are applied at any given time. So here, version 1, underscore, underscore, and this is actually the pattern that we need to use. And then you have the checksum. So this is making sure that the contents of this file right here, they aren't changed. And if they are changed, then the migration will fail. And you can see here, basically, you have got pending migrations and whatnot. But the overall idea is, so if I go to Y database migrations, is that you and I, so this is you and this is myself, so we can work in our own machine with the same database, and we together can come up with a desired schema. And then that desired schema can go into a continuous integration, test environment, and production. So this is a tool that you should really know how to use, and database migrations are a great way to regain control over this mess, right? So you can basically recreate your database from scratch, make it clear at all times what state a database is in. migrate in a deterministic way from your current version of the database to a newer one. So if you want to migrate from one database to another, then you have the entire history, and with one command you know exactly what is the exact state that your database schema should be in. Now, in my previous company, we used to have thousands and thousands of these migrations. So over time, as we built the application for about 4 years, you can imagine the amount of migrations that we had. So here in this example, so how Flyway works, you can see that there's only 2 versions in here, but as you build your application, you have more tables, you've got indexes that you have to create, you've got sequences that you have to create, you need to drop tables, you need to do all of that stuff. So using Flyway is the way forward. Now, as I said, Flyway is one of, I think, many database migrations, but you've got Liquibase, which is another, but in this course, we're going to use Flyway. You can refer to this page to see exactly how Flyway works and read the documentation, but don't worry, because I'm going to take you step by step on how to get up and running with Flyway.